Hello, friends. Welcome to Carpo's Morning Chat. Let me clear the frogs from my throat. Right now it's approximately... That was weird. As soon as I said that, I went to look at the clock and it was 7:19. But at the same time I said that, my lights turned on in my grow room. It's funny how things like that happen. Truth is, it's actually 6:19. Haven't set the clocks back yet. So I step outside and it's a little bit rainy, not too nice, a little bit cold, but it's a whole new start. Whenever we set the clocks back, last night was Halloween and I took the kids out trick-or-treating and it didn't matter that it was pouring ass rain. We went. We're determined. So, I could probably ramble on about that, but I won't. I woke up with a song stuck in my head. It was Throwing Stones by the Grateful Dead. Now this is interesting because I went through my Grateful Dead phase. Now this is all leading up to something. The title of the video will probably be related to like programming or psychedelics, but I grew up listening to the Grateful Dead from the time I was about 15 on, and fortunate enough to catch 3 or 4 shows before Jerry died. Actually, sorry, I think I saw like 5 or 6 shows. No? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I saw about 7 shows before Jerry Garcia died, and since then saw like 5 more or something. But it was an amazing time in my life during 94, about 94 and 95. And the reason that the music of the Grateful Dead, was always about the feeling. It was about these standard folk songs being written for everyone. So I woke up this morning with one song stuck in my head. It's called Throwing Stones. And, the first line of the song says, "Picture a bright blue ball just spinning, spinning free, dizzy with eternity." And he starts talking about the earth, and there's this one particular line where he says, it is a very famous Grateful Dead line. He says, he's speaking of the earth, and he says, "A peaceful place, or so it looks from space. A closer look reveals the human race." And I just get chills even thinking about it. But then he goes on to say full of grace, and it's not about like the humans are destroying the world. It's about that it's chaotic being a human, that it's chaotic being alive, and that it looks peaceful from space. It's all nice and quiet, and then you get down here and it's just chaos. But honestly, if you get outside the hustling and bustling of the city, it's quiet again. In other words, our perspectives of how the world is are really viewed on our environment, our immediate environment, or what we watch on TV or the computer, how we think that the world is. And during this process of learning and discovering and understanding ourselves and our world, we come up with some self-programming and self-sabotage techniques, which one of them being our let's just say our inability to look past our own needs and desires, to see the bigger picture and the wants of the whole, or to look past our own suspicions and look and see that the rest of the world is not ignorant, that everyone has their piece. So to get to my point now, having Throwing Stones, that song stuck in my head this morning. I also had Samson and Delilah. Neither one of those songs were songs that I've really heard lately. For about the last month, I've had Dancing in the Street stuck in my head. I should say up till about 2 weeks ago. For about 2 full weeks, I had Dancing in the Streets stuck in my head by the Grateful Dead, and it was a particular version of Dancing in the Streets. It was actually 5877 at Ithaca, New York. And that was the most amazing dancing I've ever heard. The funny thing was that the first time I heard that bootleg was about a month ago. And I had taken some Molly, or MDMA, with someone, and we were sitting there listening to this Grateful Dead show. And when you first, if you're a deadhead, you'd know what I mean. When you first put on a random show on your, if you just turn on a show, you're not going to really just get right into it. They open up and they do a few songs. Next thing you know, you're like, oh, what are they going to play next? And pretty soon you're engulfed in the show. And only a deadhead would understand that, because it's all, it's just one of those things. But I heard the song while I was at like the peak of my experience, and it embedded that in my head. What they call an earworm when you have a song stuck in your head. The strangest thing, because this went on for like a week or two. And it wasn't just that song, it was that song plus some other ideas. Now, what I mean by ideas is that I had some plans of things I wanted to do. So I thought about them while I was under the influence of MDMA. And here's my ultimate thought, is that MDMA cannot be used to program people. It can only be used to program the self. Now, explain what I mean here is the government tried to use LSD during the, during the 60s and 70s. They tried to use LSD as a weapon. And as you can see, it didn't work. They would try to give LSD to folks in order to control their thoughts and ideas. And, naturally the government was looking for something like that, or the military. It didn't work out because people were too, free floaty and free thinking, and it just didn't work out. But MDMA had been used in psychotherapy up until the 70s with great success, until they made an emergency ban on MDMA because it was getting out of the psychotherapy lab and into the hands of partiers. Now, this means MDMA was never a drug that was invented to get high. It was a drug used as a tool and for insight and understanding. Families would take it to get together and work out what they call a year's worth of therapy in one night. And, if you take it in a party atmosphere and you just dance around all night, sure, you're taking ecstasy, you're dancing, you're having fun. You remember the night, it was great, maybe, but if you use it as a tool and you just remain still and focused and consider your surroundings, consider your life, you can learn a lot. So the last few times I've done MDMA, I've had bonding experiences with the music I've listened to, as well as maybe the area I was in or the place I was at. I usually take some when I go to Burning Man, or to Soak, the local Burning Man, and it kind of, imprints that on your mind. I consider it an imprint. And so the same thing happened with this Grateful Dead song. And it took me a while to get it out of my system. But I used that. That what I'd learned as a tool to say, aha, so this is it. You can take MDMA and you can lay there and you can say, I want to be, or I want to do, or I want to see. And really, it's not about programming, it's about telling your mind what you want and having this whole reward system basically like this. Your body is flooded with serotonin when you're under the influence of psychedelics. That serotonin is part of what makes us have our reality. In other words, serotonin is what gives us our moods, our stability of mood and our mindset and our well-being, as well as dopamine. Now, I'm not going to try to explain serotonin and dopamine because not even the experts really agree and understand how these things work. Serotonin is what you might call the feel-good chemical, and dopamine is what you might call the reward chemical, although they've found recently that it's not given off when you have a reward, it's given off before you get the reward. It's given off before you do what you think is going to make you happy. So dopamine is the motivator, serotonin is the result, in a way, in a very simplistic way. And when you play around with these things, if you're careful, and you have a load of serotonin going through your system, this is when your brain is most susceptible to ideas. This is when you're most susceptible to being and to learning and to understanding. And this is why when a person's under the influence of psychedelics, at least I go through kind of a phase, it's what I call my chrysalis, where I'm kind of between realities and then I wake up in my psychedelic state. And that chrysalis, I really dissolve my ego boundaries and kind of reformulate and reconstitute who I am. And those experiences are just very, I don't know, it's a very personal thing. But with the LSD, I've had the same experiences. It's not just with it's not just with MDMA. It's very strong with psilocybin as well. I would say more psilocybin than LSD. But even though I felt it slightly, and I've done a lot of mind work on psilocybin, I'm always under the psychedelic influence while I'm doing these changes. See, when you're under the influence of psychedelics, it shuts down your frontal cortex. It shuts down your reasoning and faculty, your ability to see things normally. This isn't a bad thing. This is what allows the rest of your brain to open up and flow freely. They've shown in MRIs that the brain is active in all parts, much more than it is during, your normal daily activities and thinking. So I guess my whole point is that we can use psychedelics as a tool. If people want to take them and just get high and go party and dance around, then that's their choice, that's their life. But like I said, with mushrooms, you may gain a lot of insight, but it's hard to really do any clear thinking while you're under the influence. With MDMA, you're thinking clearly, and you also have your serotonin flowing. Everything's working in conjunction perfectly. And and just as a side note here, I'm not promoting any psychedelics or MDMA. And I am saying, if any of you out there are take MDMA or take any psychedelics, I urge you to go online, go to the Bunk Police website and buy their test kit. Bunkpolice.org, I think it is, and I believe they sell them on Amazon. It's the full marquee reagent testing kit. It allows you to basically, put a drop on what they're claiming to be MDMA and tell you if it's something else. Because there's a lot of chemicals posing as MDMA these days that are not. And in fact, they say up to 80% or more of the quote Molly on the market is not even MDMA. So just be aware of that. And now that they have kits to test and we can be safe, then be safe. Dance safe. Take care, everybody. I hope I hope I conveyed my message that we can use psychedelics to kind of open up into new avenues. And just like the song that was stuck in my head, I was using that as the example of how we can stick an idea in our head while we're under the influence. Imagine if instead of listening to the Grateful Dead album while I was high on MDMA and getting all that stuck in my head, I was listening to a self-help tape, or perhaps a motivational speaker. So that's something to be considered. Namaste, everybody. Have a wonderful day.